We're here today at Tweedlove, and we have a studentship, which is a combination of work with our commercial partner, Stefan Morrocco Media, myself, Dr. Guy Florida James, and then my PhD student, Lewis Kirkwood. And we're looking at mountain biking, in particular enduro mountain biking. And today it's all about performance, so we'll be looking at the performance of the top riders at Tweedlove Shimano International. Mountain biking, and in particular what we're looking at here today is enduro mountain biking. There's a number of elements that will come together to make the perfect run, or the perfect day on the bike for the riders. And within that you've got a very complex machine, and that is the mountain bike itself. And within that there's lots of different components on that mountain bike. And the biggest and most dynamic and most complicated component on that mountain bike is the athlete themselves. So what we're trying to do is have a look at what's happening with the bike, and we're also having a look at what's happening with the athlete on that bike. And when you get that interaction of the two parts, well then that allows us to do some really nice, cool science. So it's a combination of on the bike and on the athlete, and we'll be doing a compare and comparison. And that's where our summer intern from Edinburgh Napier University, Jamie Cunningham, will be spending a lot of time after the race looking at all that data. He's going to have a lot of data to look at.
Currently I'm taking a summer internship with G and Lewis with downhill mountain biking at enduro events. Yesterday I was out the tracks and it was really good, seeing the guys fly down corners, looking at the different elements involved, technique, riding patterns, and also working with Stefan, who's doing a lot of video analysis. It was really good. Watching how he filmed, how he's talking about where the riders take the lines, how they get around it.
So today we're using the Catapult Optimeye S5. These include a 10 Hz GPS unit, and there's also a 100 Hz accelerometer, magnometer and gyroscope in there, and they're very useful for looking at movements in these planes, up, down, backwards, forwards. It'll give you a lot of information on G-forces and accelerations from the various different technologies included in it. So we put one of these in the seat post, and we also put one in this fancy looking harness, which the unit goes in the back here, and that tracks the movement of the rider in relation to the bike.
So we are looking at velocity, we're looking at accelerations. We also have accelerometers in the little data loggers, so we can look at the acceleration, so the loading that we'll see on the athletes. When we look at the data, we can see how people actually ride, and that's the really interesting thing about today, the differences between how they ride and how they ride a trail. So ostensibly it is the same trails that everybody is riding down, but the trails themselves can be maybe 1, 2, possibly 3 meters wide in places. It allows people to have different line choices, and on that line choice then it will depend on the abilities of the athlete themselves, so the skill level. But within that as well, a huge part of it as the day goes on is how fit they are, so their endurance capacity as well. So that allows them to then look at different line choices. It also depends on the bike they're using and how they, what I call the amount of abuse that they take in the day. So what we're trying to do is to quantify that abuse that's on the body, and then so at the last stage of the day they can replicate what they did in this first stage of the day. So the person that can replicate the best their skill level and maintain their fitness all the way through those stages, so they can put the power down, they put the speed down, they have the ability to move the bike, to maneuver the bike, to put it into the exact place that they want, then that means that they will be the best and they will be the fastest on the day. What we're trying to do with the science is trying to get to a point of being able to understand how that athlete does all of that, which includes what happens on the bike and what happens with the bike, but also what happens with the athlete. Hence why we look at athlete components with the units on the athletes and the heart rate monitor in the athlete, and also then we look at what's happening on the bike as well, to see how the bike is interacting with the terrain.
This research that we're doing today is important because it's not yet been done, and I think it's really important to look at the demands of enduro mountain biking before we go on and try and train people at the highest level. So it'll help coaches, athletes, and will also help us get a greater understanding of the sport itself.